When you retire, you have a lot of control over the income tax you pay. For example, you can initially live off your ISA and pension tax-free cash, and so potentially pay no income tax for many years of your initial retirement. And tax planning can really boost your wealth if it's done properly, and that's what I'm going to explain. So here's one version of income tax in retirement where the person is initially just utilizing their personal allowance and then paying the maximum of the 20% tax band. They're taking from their pension to utilize that personal allowance, and then they're taking some tax-free cash as well on top of that, and then topped up with an ISA. Then the state pension kicks in, and when the ISAs run out, they're relying more heavily on their pension, which is why they're paying the 20% tax. So what they're doing is front-end loading all the tax savings, and then later on in life, they're running the risk of potentially paying 40% tax if they have extra expenses such as care home costs. So here we've got kind of the opposite. This person is holding back on their ISA, using it in later years, so they're not paying any tax later on in life, and they're essentially running down their pension first through a mixture of the taxable and the tax-free elements, and again they've got the state pension kicking in. So now when they're in their later years, they can afford care home costs and any other things like a trip to Skegness that they might want to buy, and they're not worried about HMRC taking their money. And then finally, a bit more of a blended approach. In this example, the ISA is always being drawn upon so that 20% tax is being paid, but not necessarily at the top of the 20% tax band. So there's still some headroom to spend more money if they want to. And then also the pension is lasting much longer because they're not drawing on it so heavily. In a retirement calculator spreadsheet, we can compare tax profiles across different scenarios and see which one we like best in terms of things like total tax paid, and then also the timing of when we actually pay that income tax. My spreadsheet is in contrast to something like Voyant, where all you can see is the total tax that is paid. This is for two people, and if they're paying 18k in tax in total, then probably one of them is paying 40% tax. But unfortunately, Voyant won't tell us this. And that's why I don't like a lot of wealth planning software, because ultimately it doesn't optimize for tax planning. And also Voyant has a nasty habit of withdrawing from your ISA first and not utilizing your personal allowance. So it's actually very tax inefficient in the early years. The tax planning spreadsheet is fully customizable. It's also fully transparent. You can easily see all the calculations. The spreadsheet can link to other data that you might have, all of your sources of income and expenditure. And with a spreadsheet, you just buy it once and you've got lifetime access. There's no need for ongoing payments. I'm Ian Shadrack, a qualified accountant with over 30 years experience. I've helped hundreds of people to build wealth plans and tax plans in a spreadsheet format. The correct order of drawdown of assets in retirement and the blending of tax-free sources like an ISA alongside taxable sources like a pension can really help to lower your tax bill and avoid paying 40% tax in retirement, even if you've got, say, £1 million worth of pension assets. It's really worthwhile running the numbers and seeing in graphical format exactly what's going on. The actual mechanics of tax planning in retirement, it used to be to take from pensions last, but now pensions are subject to inheritance tax. That often isn't the case, and particularly with larger pensions, it's often a good idea to migrate the tax-free cash into an ISA so they can continue to grow in an unrestricted way. And because it's difficult to be specific, that's why I do case study videos that really outline all of the options that are open to you. Here, hopefully, I've explained that wealth planning software isn't great as tax planning software, but a customizable spreadsheet can cope with all of your needs. And often you need a coach to act as a sounding board to really help you get the most out of your retirement plan. I'll put a link to a read-only copy of the retirement calculator in the description to this video. And there's also a video playlist so you can learn how the retirement calculator works before purchasing. If you're interested in purchasing the retirement calculator, I'll put a link in the description. Otherwise, you can watch this next video, which gives you useful information about planning your retirement.